Hey everyone, Paul Gregor, product manager for HyRy Guy with KWS Seeds. Today we're out in the field and we're going to do and look at some stand assessments. I know some of you are probably out in the field now looking and wondering about how well your rye is going to do. So we're going to do some exercises. We're going to show you how if your rye is doing well, because I know some of you have got some calls and we saw some very, very small rye last fall because of some dry conditions. And wondering if that's going to regrow and whether or not it's alive. So we're gonna go through some of that right now. So I want you to know a fact about rye. Rye is going to start regrowing just after freezing. If the temperatures warm up right after freezing, the rye will start to grow. Not a lot of other crops do that. So rye is very, very good at that. So you're going to be able to actually look at the roots and evaluate what your stand is. So if we look at rye, and in this case, some of you have some smaller rye, I'm sure, out in the field. We have some, in this case, some probably 2 to 3 leaf or 2 to 3 tillers. Some of you are also going to probably be in a stage where you're getting close to jointing. You're going to get a bigger crop. But if we're going to evaluate the stand, especially on some things that are fairly small, we want to look at the roots. If rye is doing well, even if you can barely see that stem or that sprout coming out of the ground, if the roots you pull out and you see this soil stuck to it, nice sticky roots, that means the rye is doing its job, it's alive. You also will see these fine roots here too, they'll be white, so you'll know your rye is alive also. So don't be surprised if you just see a tiny little sprout and you say, no, I gotta tear this field up. Hang on, let the rye regrow a little bit, and I'll guarantee you'll still get some pretty decent yields off of that. Sure, we'd love to have a lot of tillers in the fall, but in some cases where it was dry in the South Dakota, North Dakota region of our trade territory, I mean, some of it had a very hard time germinating last year. So we're gonna have some people that need to do some good stand evaluation there. So the rye is probably still growing, so hang in there. You want to take a shovel with you and a yardstick, and we have some charts based on your row spacing on your planter. It'll tell you how many feet to measure off to do a square foot. So for instance, if you had 6-inch rows, that would be, you'd measure 2 feet, and of course that would be equivalent to 1 square foot. So when we do that, we measure that, and you want to look for a ideal optimum would be 17 plants per square foot. So in that case, you'd want about 17 plants in those 2 feet. Now, if you don't have that, 9 to 10 would be a minimum, and you'd still get good stand before you'd have to say, I'm going to abandon the field or it's not doing so well. So wait for that to green up and make sure you take that yardstick out, measure that length, and make sure you've got those 17 plants. If you've got that, you're great. The other thing to remember too is that let's say you had areas that didn't survive, whether it was too dry, too wet. If you only had a few plants in a small area, I think the best thing would be to either desiccate that out or kill it and plant some other crop. That would be the best, because if you leave a single plant, you'll end up getting a lot of tillers, a lot of different maturity, and you'll end up probably getting more ergot in the field, and that's something you want to be careful when you do that. Because remember, rye will flower in like a 1-day, 10-hour period, and then the rest of it will straggle in for about 5 days and finish off. But if you have a plant out there that's by itself, it will continue to throw tillers, continue to throw heads, and it'll actually mess up and contaminate your grain. So be careful with that.